Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jenless, the podcast that's here to help you break free, be you, and unleash your inner brilliance. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we're going to talk about demystifying breathwork and, in fact, all healing and energetic modalities. Let's dive in. Hey there, friend. It's Jen. Welcome to Brilliance of Breathwork Month. I crafted this event this month to, first of all, elevate some amazing freaking practitioners who are doing cool stuff all around the world, but people don't know about it. People don't understand it. People are perhaps even a little bit weirded out by it. And it's because I was this person not so long ago that I'm so passionate about this. And because it has impacted my life in the way that it has, I just think we need to be talking more about this, more and more about this kind of healing work. We know that our current systems, our current health systems, the way that we have been approaching health and healing in this world has not been helping people. The way that we approach work in this world is not working. All of these things that are not working, there are things out there that can help us, that do work, that do support us, that do support our safety and our health and our healing, and help us to live the most immaculate, wonderful, brilliant, beautiful lives that we want to. And we're not doing it, but they exist. And so breath work is one of those things. It's the thing that for me has made the biggest difference. And so that's what we're talking about all month long. And no better person to kick off this month with than Sally Davidson, who is amazing. She was a nurse for 30 years. She was like a head nurse, like ran the program for a long time. She knows her stuff, and she left that business in order to help people in a whole new way. So Sally combines now Eastern and Western medicine to really take this holistic approach to healing. She has a really powerful journey that has brought her to this point. And I just know you're going to love what she's saying. We are both on this page of like, let's demystify the shit out of this stuff so that we can help people heal, so we can help people be better, so we can help people live freer, beautiful lives, so that at the end of our life, when we're 80 years old, we look back and we say, that was a life well lived. That was a life well freaking lived. And so we do make it into our 80s. So we can love this life that we're living. That's what this month is about. That's what Brilliance of Breathwork Month is about, and highlighting these cool people who are doing cool things. And so that you hopefully see a couple of things, how you could be using new practices. You'll learn some things along the way, how you could support your health and your well-being in a whole new way. And hopefully you also see that through these people who are stepping into their gifts, who still doubt themselves sometimes, but are still just stepping into this gift because they know it's meant for them. They know that they have something to offer here. You can see that for yourself in whatever you do. I don't care what career or what thing in life you feel a little bit unsure or imposter syndrome about right now. Look through the lens of these people who I'm interviewing this month and see yourself in them. So without further ado, kicking off Brilliance of Breathwork Month, to help us demystify this crap, Sally Davidson. Hi, Sally.
Hey, Jen. Thanks for having me.
It's so fun to have you on because we were in a breathwork facilitation program together, and we very briefly met, and I was like, she's cool.
Thank
She's
you.
cool. I like her. I followed you. And then we really haven't connected again until this initiative for Brilliance of Breathwork Month brought us back together. And I just always trust divine timing. So it's perfect timing.
Yeah, I saw that and I just didn't even hesitate. I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to help out with this. And yeah, I felt the same when I met you. It was brief, but I was like, I was in awe of your podcast, and was feeling a little uncertain in my breathwork training, which has completely changed my life. But yeah, so I was so happy to help out with this and jump on here with you.
Yeah. It's so funny too, because you have so many credentials. You know what the frick you're doing in every single way. And still, even when we are that person, we can still have those little things. Like every single human being does, right? Because you're like, I do want to have a podcast. And it's like, yeah, because it's meant for you. And so it's just that matter of you saying yes and hopping into it. And we're not totally here to talk about that, but I also just want to give that boost and also just that realness. We all have those things. And it's like when something's calling on our heart, it's like you're always going to be a little nervous about it, right? Even in the process of learning something.
Oh yeah. I mean, this whole journey of healing is right. We're human. We're living a human experience. So whether we're a coach or healer, a breathwork facilitator, Reiki master, it doesn't really matter. We're still human. We're souls living in this human body. So we still have the ups and downs of life and how we work through that. So we all have our little idiosyncrasies and that's what we get help with and we learn through the process. So I just think it's amazing and magical once you get to that point in your life that you're aware. So I still have those things.
And that's really what we're here to talk about is that awareness. So we're kicking off Brilliance of Breathwork Month with you, which is just so fantastic. I absolutely love it because what I really want to talk about with you is demystifying this work that you do that is so important. This work that I do that is so important. This work that so many practitioners around the world are doing. And my journey, just Sally, to catch you up on some of like my podcast and where I've just been through this, what I now know is a healing journey, but I had no idea what the hell was going on. To be honest, I didn't understand. I just knew I was seeking. I was searching. I was like, there's something more. There's something else. What is next? And I'm going down this path. And anybody who listens to this podcast can go back to episode 1 and be like, wow, she's been on a journey. What's happening here? And I've been very honest about it all along the way. But there were things that were happening sometimes that I didn't really understand it. I was just saying yes to it. And I see this now as a coach and as a healer, that's a lot of times the place where people are at. And so I'm like, how do we kind of get ahead of that even more to help people understand why these things that we do are here for them and how it can help them? So what do you do? What do you do, Sally? What do you do in the world? What are you here to help people do? Just like, let's just break this down for people.
Yeah, I love it. This is a great topic. And I think the same way. Like, how can we demystify, like, talking about this, whether it's spirit, whether it's the universe, whether it's energy work and Reiki, what is even that? A spirit animal, breath work, connecting to the divine, whatever you want to call it, right? It doesn't matter. It to me, it surpasses religious beliefs, political beliefs, all that stuff, right? This is just about us as human beings and what we're supposed to be doing in this world. And what I hear from most of my clients or people that I run across is the same thing you just said. Like, I got to this point. I personally got to this point. I'm a nurse by, I guess, trade or profession for 30 years. And I got to this point. I was pretty much at the place in my career. I was a director of critical care services, very busy. Thought that was so powerful. And I felt just completely disconnected. I just started feeling very disconnected. COVID hit. I had taken a coaching certification. I'm board certified as a nurse coach. And I just wasn't doing that, but I was still working in my my regular 9 to 5 or 12-hour job, I should say, as a leader in my institution. And I just felt disconnected. I felt that same thing you felt, like, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go with this or what I'm supposed to do with this, but this feels weird. And in the process of that, I had a lot of bubbling up of my old trauma and things that happened to me. And I'm like, why is this coming up? And then I started having panic attacks at work. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? I thought I dealt with this. And even my husband, I laugh about this, but when we got married, second marriage, he was like, you were so tough and strong and you just pushed through everything. And I did think that was a superpower, but that is not a superpower. Hello, everybody. I know you think that's your superpower, but obviously it's a defense mechanism. It was all of my protectors that kind of saved me and helped me because I had to push through to be successful. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but there is a disconnection that happens when we start to do that. And so what I found is in my own healing journey, my own uncovering excavation of what I've been through and why I was being triggered or acting or feeling this way, I started to uncover my own trauma. I started to uncover and find I became a coach first, didn't really work as a coach. And then I became did a 9-month apprenticeship, credentialing, whatever, with a Reiki master. But he's a shamanic Reiki master because I had some interest in maybe dabbling in plant medicine. And so I saw that he did that. And so I wanted to feel trusted in the person I was training with. So I spent 9 months learning Reiki and energy work, which is such healing work. Even if you don't do it on other people, you can just work it on yourself. You can just take care of yourself with Reiki. You can do self Reiki. And
okay, so I have to ask you though, just to pause for the listener who's like, okay, we're demystifying things. Shamanic Reiki master sounds like some kind of mysticism. Yes. So what is that? What exactly is that?
Yeah, thanks for stopping me there. So Reiki is energy work, right? It has been an energy work that has been going on for a long time. It is just basically gentle, non-invasive, what I would call a massage without a massage with your clothes on, right? So when we go to full massage, we usually get undressed and the therapist is doing therapeutic touch, whether it's, a deep tissue massage or a hot stone massage. So with Reiki, there's non-touch and touch Reiki. I happen to practice touch Reiki because I'm really big about therapeutic touch and I think it's very healing. So I just choose to practice that way. But there's energy that is brought in. I don't provide the energy. And so this is where the woo, I guess, comes in. The energy comes through. You're attuned. The Reiki master attunes you. So he brings you some symbols that have been passed down generationally through lineages. And you are able to pass through this energy with help from spirit, your guides, which again sounds woo. The reality is it works. And you can feel the energy. It's a little bit crazy at first. And so people are a little bit maybe weirded out or think this is not right, but you can feel the energy. And what clients will say after a Reiki treatment is they feel lighter, they feel calmer. They're not sure why. Some people who I think already have some open senses, some people see things, some people see colors. Everybody's different. So every experience is different. But we're actually we're made up of energy. So even though people think this sounds woo or too mystical or I don't know how much data is there, right? But we are made of energy. The world how is the world up in the atmosphere turning and we're not falling off, right? I mean, I know that probably, I'm not really hugely science, even though I'm a nurse, but about that. But we're all made of energy. Energy transcends time and space. That's science. That's data. And
we're dense energy when you think about it too. Like we are just dense collections of energy. Energy is just moving all around us. And if you think the planet is like ultra dense, we're a little bit less dense. This table is incredibly dense, but it's all moving. Yeah.
Right. So we can actually feel the energy move. I mean, you can feel the energy. The client can feel the energy, even if they don't believe. And they're just helping me out when I was training. And they were like, I don't really know what you're doing, but sure, I'll lay on the table. And then they would get up and they were like, oh, I don't know what you did, but that feels amazing. I have taken care of people with fibromyalgia, different autoimmunes that can't lay flat. They'll lay flat for an hour. They do not even move a muscle. And they'll get up and say, I can't believe that I could lay like that. Like I never can lay like that. So there's a transmission of that energy that happens. And just as we're over, for me as the Reiki master, over the body, you can kind of feel the person's energy. There are some people that do energy work that can see a lot. I am not a person that sees a lot. I feel more. So I can feel into if things feel dense within their body. I am not hugely intuitive. I'm not going to tell them a big story after a Reiki session. That's just not how I operate. But there are people that do operate like that. Because their senses are they can see a lot.
You're like a physical healer, which you literally you're made to be, right? You were a nurse for 30 years.
Yeah. So I feel more. So I'll feel into if things feel dense within their body. And then you can feel the energy where it's moving. You can feel the energy to kind of try to clear it up. And the people, clients come back and sometimes people will come once a week. Sometimes people will come once a month. I remember I used that term from a client who was trying to explain to people what she was doing. And she was like, it's a massage with your clothes on. And And she didn't really understand it, but what she would say is, I don't know, but I'm a pretty tense, stressed person. And people were saying to her, you seem different. And the only thing that she had changed is she was coming for energy work.
It's amazing, truly. And my Reiki journey is documented in this podcast too. Of the first time that I had it, I was like, y'all, I just have to tell you something. It's like a hug. I feel like it's a hug. It's like just the most amazing, comforting feeling receiving Reiki. And afterward, I can see color so bright. I'll go for a hike. I intentionally do Reiki and then I go for a hike because the green is so green. And I do live in Oregon where the green is greener than green, but it's even greener than green
Right.
after I do Reiki. It's
Right.
wild.
And it just creates this balance, this overall well-being imbalance throughout your body. We can get into talking about chakras, but I mean, the chakras are actually there, whether you believe that or not. And so just to balance those parts of our body, I mean, our body is made up. If you look at the DNA strands, I mean, there's so many things that connect. We could, really go off, but there's so many things that connect that are connected to science. We're just not sometimes open to, like, with the demystifying it, like, we just don't want to think because it's not what they're saying right here in this book. But when you look at the human body and how it's made up, and when you just think about how we walk around every day, or as women, how we have children and there's a baby inside of it. I mean, there's so many things, but we really, at the end of the day, we are made up of energy, and energy creates all that to work. So the fact that we can have, like, faith in the universe, our guides, and then bring that energy down. I mean, clients are feeling it. They feel warm. That's what a lot of people say. Like, if you're performing Reiki, sometimes at the end of my breath sessions, I'll do a little Reiki if it's a small group, and, they feel that warmth as soon as you come up to them. You don't even have to be touching them. They start to feel the warmth and that feeling. When I receive Reiki, it's just like you said, a warm hug. You're not even sure what's happening. I actually had an experience. I hadn't had Reiki in a while. And I went back to a different Reiki master, and she's also an intuitive, so she does things a teeny bit different. But I remember when she was over my chest, I almost took my breath away. And at first I was like, what? I hadn't had Reiki in a while. It was before I got certified. And I was like, what is happening? I literally felt like, and it was just the beginning of her session. It was very strong.
Yeah.
And so I say that like it's scary, but it wasn't. It was just like this feeling of my own energy. It wasn't like she's performing a spell on me or anything like that. It's really the energy that's learning to move. And so science-wise, we need to be able to move our cerebrospinal fluid. We need to be able to have good flow. A river needs good flow, right? If it gets a lot of rocks and it gets dammed off, it gets stagnant. It's the same within our body. And these are just techniques to help us be able to keep the flow of everything going. So it's not as woo and crazy as people think. They just don't know about it, so they are a little apprehensive, but it's just another way to keep that flow going within us.
It's just different than it's a different way of looking at it and a more holistic. And I think that's what people are craving right now, is this more holistic view of everything, because we've just thought of things as so partitioned off. And it's like our body, we can think about it in a partitioned way because that's what our brain likes to do, but your body's not partitioned. I hate to tell you, it's like everything is flowing together all the time. Can we talk about breath and like where breath is coming in for you? So you did Reiki first and then you moved into the breath. Why have you added that into what you're doing? Why is that something that called to you?
I do some work in my coaching called Inner Alignment, and it was a program I actually went through when I was struggling at my kind of lowest point. And so in that program, I was learning more how to meditate, more how to connect back to myself, using mantra, using breath. But breath in a yogic perspective, it has a lot of yogic background in this program that I actually do with my clients now. But it's a pretty strong yogic background. We do the doshas. I know there's a lot with human design now. So we're doing a lot of things with that. And so I was finding with my clients, I was trying to help them with a morning meditation practice. And although it works for a lot of people and it works for me, I can connect really deeply in meditation, not in the beginning, but now. And so what I was finding is some of my clients just couldn't felt like they couldn't do it. There was a block around meditation. They didn't want to do it. They didn't have time for it, whatever the case may be. So I was including like a little bit of yogic breath work, grounding breath work, and some energizing, but I was mainly using that grounding breath work, alternate nostril. And I call it like a little bit of a bait and switch, right? Because they don't think they're meditating, but they're concentrating on the breath. And so they're still getting that nervous system regulation with the breath. So instead of beating a dead horse around the meditation and waiting just till they were ready, I was using a lot of breath. And then I was like, there's a lot here with this breath. And I decided to explore, okay, how could I become a breathwork facilitator? And I was seeing a lot of things online. And it seemed, even as a nurse, right? I didn't name it when I was a nurse, but you sit with someone at their bedside, they're anxious, they're nervous, or a family member, and you're touching them. You're touching maybe their hand. You're looking in their eyes, you're connecting with them, and then you're breathing with them. I could not name that as a nurse, which seems silly now that I couldn't, but I guess we weren't taught that way. But I was actually creating this coherence with them, and so that they would feel the way I was feeling, calm. And so I really started to think a lot about that. And so I leaned into breath work. And honestly, when I first signed up, I thought, is this another shiny object for me as a coach? Is this another thing I'm credentialing in and not launching? And I was very nervous through the training. I trained with Pause, as you did, and it's a pretty extensive trauma-informed 6 months. It was a lot, right?
It was a lot.
And I remember my first time having to facilitate in the group, I was like, this is not happening. I could tell the whole story about what actually happened. It was crazy. But I pushed through that, and it literally changed my life. And so I do mix energy work in my breath sessions when I'm, especially in person, because I'm doing in-person work. And I just find it mind-blowing, because the breath, even though I'm still introducing breath to my community, because they understand yogic breath, everybody advertises breath, but they're not necessarily doing breath the way we were trained to do breath.
Yeah, it's very different. One of the things that for me, and I'll be curious to hear your perspective since you've been doing it, and your background too is so interesting. You've got this like really deep layer of that health knowledge and that one-on-one and physical touch and all of that with people that I don't have. So you have this whole different perspective. The biggest thing that I learned and what really drew me to Pause, two things actually. Okay. First thing was we went in on ourselves first for months,
100%.
Months ourselves first. Through the lens of, I'm going to have to teach this to somebody, but also we went really deep for ourselves. But the other thing with the trauma informed is safety. And something in my own research, when I was an employee experience strategist, I realized that there's no safety in our corporate culture. And it's a lack of like base level safety that we were struggling with there, which is part of what turned me inward toward a lot of these practices. So I'm curious for you, what is the thing that you really find is supportive? Is it safety? Is it the physical touch? Is it like, what really calls to you?
I think if I went back to the Pause, I have to agree with you 100%. And that's what I tell people is the first 3 months is all about you. And I think that's what creates them to put out really, really good facilitators, because you really have to embody breath. I was embodying breath, but not at this level. That I would be lying if I wasn't. And then the safety aspect and how I hold my people. And I have to say, I struggled a little bit with this, because you see all the shiny objects, you see what's happening in the world of breath, right? Maybe every person that's listening to the podcast doesn't, but if you look out there long enough, you're going to see a lot of different breaths. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but intensity, I 100% agree, does not equal transformation. Okay, that I'm huge on that. And therefore there was a moment, because I do have a comparison gene that sits on my shoulder. And when she sees other things, she says, oh, I should be doing it this way. And I have kind of stuck to my guns, because my feedback from my clients have been, they feel held, they feel nourished, they feel safe. And there are going to be the people that want to have this really intense. And I feel like I'm creating in my community maybe an ability to have a breathwork session like that, where I can go deeper with people. But for the most people, my mission is to create more people to embrace breath work and breath work to be like meditation, the new meditation, right? We can meditate or we can do breath or we can do both. And the experience that we provide people with the way that we're doing breath as pause facilitated, trained breathwork facilitators or guides is we are holding them and we are creating a space for them that feels safe. And in the beginning, you have to go slow. I'm convinced you have to go slow. You have to create a safety within their body to be like, okay, this is okay. Because I do it. I have some people that don't come back and I feel like, okay, I don't attach too much to the outcome. I don't think sometimes people are just even ready for it to be slow. They're just not sure like what is kind of happening and maybe they're just not ready and that's perfectly fine. But my other people I have found they've been to other breathworks and they want to feel nourished. People are craving connection, physical touch, breath. And when I do physical touch in my in-person sessions, I always clear that up in the beginning. I really talk a lot. I think that they prepared me well. I think I had some of this as a nurse, but also they prepared me well in pause to create this environment of safety and always asking permission. So I ask in the beginning about essential oils because I'll use a little bit of essential oils. So I ask people if they have any sensitivities. I ask them about physical touch. And, I have a routine of touching people on the right shoulder when I get there and making sure that everybody's okay with what's happening in the room. So I haven't had any pushback on any of that. And I think the combination of breath and then if the person is okay with physical touch, that physical touch, if it happens, it doesn't always happen in every session, but it does happen. I think that people explore things within themselves that they don't even know are there, which is what happened to me. I mean, people, when they share at the end, sometimes people don't share because it's just too much to process. And sometimes they do share and it's not anything like that they thought was going to come up. And I'm very clear in the beginning talking about, not worrying about what the person next to you is feeling or experiencing. My sessions so far, because it is new to my community, there's not a lot of yelling or anything that's going on in my sessions. It's pretty calm. I do know that I have a group of people now that want to explore it deeper. And so I just think those sessions need to be separate because that's just the way I feel. I want to bring people, I want to create more safety so more people learn that breath can be very healing for them. And it's safe to do it in a safe environment. And combining all those things together is really been working for me.
Yeah, and that's that holistic perspective again that you're bringing to this because it's like breath work is mindful. You can do breath work and meditation. My personal belief and my experience and what I see with clients and what I see with myself is that breath work is a means of getting to that meditative state. And it's like bringing the physical into it too, which it helps us to feel again. There's all of these things that it helps us to do. And it's cool that we can do it virtual and we can do it in person. Most of mine is virtual. I'm a virtual gal. I'm also a really private person. So I love doing breathwork virtually where I can be in the safety of my home, but I also occasionally like it in person. And I think it's so great that we can have facilitators doing it different ways. I actually facilitated in person this weekend and I'm not a huge physical touch person, but there were a couple of people who I just knew that was going to be supportive to them. And afterward they came up and they said, I don't know how you knew to touch the crown of my head, or I don't know how you knew to touch my knee or my elbow. But it's like, we start to listen to that. Do you have that nudge to touch a certain spot?
Yeah. And sometimes the thing that's been funny with breath for me is because I was really overthinking like my whole career change and my coaching and like, is this really what I should be doing? I mean, I left this amazing career. It was safe. It was definitely safe. I was in it. It might've been a bit toxic and, a lot of things, but the reality is it was a pretty safe career. And I
Safe,
was
safe
not
is a like
Yeah,
how
safe, I
safe to
guess
your health, maybe
financially.
not. Yeah.
It was safe financially, but it wasn't good for my
Mm,
it wasn't good for my healing space. Like where I was, like obviously I needed to make this change. I think I was, drawn to the changes, drawn to what I've done. And I think it's all starting to really, really come together. And that really happened after breath. But my people, yeah, I'm intuitively running my sessions, and even I have a group virtual session on Wednesday nights, and I don't want to say I don't prepare because that like seems lackadaisical, but I feel like with breath especially, and honestly with Reiki, right? There's not a lot of preparation for me because I really am gauging it intuitively on how I honestly feel that day and what I want to bring up, because my space I hold on Wednesday evenings with 6 women, and which is just ending actually tonight, and I'm doing a new one, but it's just a little teeny bit of coaching, like maybe bringing up perfectionism or fear, whatever's kind of on my mind that week that I feel like maybe they need to hear. And then I infuse that into the intention, and I infuse it into the session for them. And the same as the in person, I have so many times that people come back and are like, I feel like you were speaking directly to me, or I feel like you touched me exactly where I needed to be touched, or you came over to me right at the time, or whatever it is. And I don't say that like I'm this amazing intuitive or healer. It's just part of me and my journey and being more open to hearing the calls or the messages that are literally being sent to me on what I'm supposed to be doing now in life,
mm-hmm.
to help other people see that there is another side to this hustle and bustle of life that we're living, and that we're have these old traumas and things embedded in us that we have been bypassing, I guess, for a long time. And so this holistic approach is so different because we're learning to feel to heal, right? And we're starting to understand that numbing all of that pain isn't productive.
Yeah, a couple things. One thing I would love to invite you to embody is that you are an amazing healer and
Yeah, no.
intuitive, because it's so obvious to me that you are, that's what you
Thank you.
are.
I know. That's some of my work, embracing that. But yeah.
Yeah. And also what you said about preparedness, this is fascinating. And it just dropped in for me while you were speaking about it, is that it's like a new way of thinking about how to be prepared.
Mhm.
Because the way that you can be prepared is to sit there and to write all the notes and have everything that you want to say and be ready to say it and have it memorized and show up and do that. Or you could be prepared by waking up and doing your breath and doing your meditation and walking into your day into an embodied state and tapping into your own energy before you walk into something. There's like two different ways that we can prepare. And maybe there's like a little bit of a balance of both of those is what I try to achieve. But we often don't think about that other side of being prepared. And that's what real leaders do. Like people who are able to like step up, like the Michael Jordans, like he was coached into himself, into embodying himself by a really fantastic coach. The person who coached him was also, he had his mom who was believing in him and saying, yeah, you are an amazing healer. Like he had both of those things, which we all need, right? I know you're passionate about coaching.
No, it's so true. And I think that's an old standard of thinking, right? Like I have to be prepared. So I sometimes almost think this breath thing is too easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I doing it wrong because it's too easy for me? And it's because I definitely come from of a thought process of it has to be hard and I have to earn it to be worthy, right? So we can get in, that could be a whole nother podcast, right? But I still have those things. And so changing as I do my healing journey and changing that thought process, it doesn't have to be hard as I engage more into my feminine flow and my feminine leadership style, because I definitely had a more masculine leadership style, even in nursing. Like I had this compassionate, loving side who broke the rules for diversity and the animals to come in the ICU. And if we had different, diversities, like, if someone was dying, like I would do whatever it took to
your intuition
that for the family. Right. But I also had I'm also aware I had a very masculine leadership style. So I've been trying to embrace that feminine side and that feminine flow that can be just as abundant and beautiful. And I think I found that, and breath helped me find that, because when I'm in flow state, when I'm breathing, people, I feel so And I guess if I had never felt this, I don't think I've ever felt this before, but when I'm breathing people in person or even online, I am completely resourced. Some people don't understand. So what that means for me as I feel like from my root, from my belly, from my heart, like it just comes out. I don't have a script. I have a thought when I go in the room. I'm ready. And I intuitively bring in maybe the inner child. Maybe I am bringing empowerment. It just depends on the group and how I feel. And it's all intuitive. And it feels easy because I'm not having to prepare a slideshow and all the things that I don't love to do. And so it's been a journey for me to start to embrace those gifts and how that feels in my body to then bring it to my clients to feel in their body. Because I was always pretty like wired type A. And now to start embodying these practices and then you bring them out to your people that are coming, they can feel it. They can feel it. And it's such a different feeling. I get jazzed up just talking about it. And I think that's where breath really, I changed my life.
It's so beautiful. And one of the things that you said, it really just dropped in for me that we're like finding our gifts and also learning to trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that trust that really allows the flow. So you showing up in that session and just trusting what's flowing through you. And I think a lot of the times, maybe before we hopped on this call or at the beginning of the call, I can't remember, we were talking about that. It's like not second guessing ourselves and learning to stop second guessing because we've spent most of our lives second guessing and living in that masculine energy because it basically, when we live in a world that says that way is wrong, this is the way that you do things. You hustle, you go, you do it from this perspective. All of us, men too, we have been denying this feminine side of ourselves. So it's like we're denying truth after truth after truth. We're denying our gifts. We're not allowing them to flow through. So this shift is so beautiful. You being the person who you are with the experience that you are, I just think it's really powerful, Sally.
Yeah, I'm trying to embrace it, right? I work with my clients on that, but I still, like I said, I really only take my clients as deep as I've been, and I go pretty
deep.
I love going pretty deep because it blows my mind like how many holistic practices there are that we should be utilizing. I shouldn't say should, but that that are available to us if we just open our minds and our hearts to doing things differently. And I have a very strong Western medicine background, 30 years, the last so many in leadership and in intensive care, so critical care, but we're not getting it right in healthcare. We're just not. And we should be infusing so much of this into not just the hospitals, but to doctors' offices and different places. And I have to say, interestingly enough, recently I had 2 referrals for one-on-one breath work. And one was from a clinical licensed therapist that was at one of my group sessions. I don't even know her or who she is. She referred a client, and then a nurse practitioner recently referred me. So I was like, oh, there's I think hope. And we just have to keep spreading the message in so many ways that there are these alternative routes where we do look at mind, body, and spirit. Spirit doesn't mean religion. It's really a faith and a trust in something bigger than us, because a lot of this stuff is bigger than us. Energy is bigger than us, right? So I start to challenge people on that. This really isn't woo. Right. It's just opening our minds and being open to something that maybe scares us a little because we're just not sure what it is. But the data is there because I didn't understand myself until I started to explore some of this old trauma and how it's stuck in my body and how it can be excavated and how you don't have to relive the trauma. I think some people think that we have to relive it. It's really not. A lot of this work isn't about reliving your trauma, your big traumas, because there's a lot of trauma. Like we all have trauma. So, and it does affect, how we are today and how we're living our life today and how we raise our kids if we have kids or what kind of partnership we're in. It does. I mean, it's been very apparent for me. And so my life is very different than it was. But I'm not a monk living on a mountaintop. I'm a person living life, and life gets hard sometimes. And so you have to pivot and adjust and change your practices and see what works for your body and start to listen to it, because our body holds all of our wisdom. We think it's just our brain, but really, when you start to engage your body and listen, life can look very differently.
Yeah, and science is really starting to catch up to some of this too. I think in the next decade, I'm so excited to see what we learn, just epigenetics and how people can legitimately be experiencing past lives. Like when, when something is triggered in your body, it's like all of this, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I'm fascinated by it. I can't get enough of the
100%.
information about it. I think, and it really plays into trauma and all of the things. And I'm not an expert in that area. I'm just an incredibly curious human being. Sally, thank you. Thank you so much for being who you are, for coming here and talking about this, for sharing your story, for being vulnerable to talk about exactly where you are on your journey. And you're showing up and you're supporting people. And that's what all of us can be doing in our unique way, whether you're a breathwork facilitator, whether you're listening to this and you want to do art, or if you want to teach, or if you want to start doing digital course, whatever that thing is that you want to do, what we're saying is step into those gifts, and that there are tools here that can support you as you're moving through that, because that's a whole different ballgame that I know you could come back on the podcast, and maybe you can sometimes, to talk about coaching deeper into the coaching. But thank you so much. Is there anything that you would love to share with this audience in terms of just talking about demystifying this practice of breath work and energy work and all of the things that you do that you haven't shared?
No, I think kind of what you just following up on what you just said, Jen, is really just opening your minds and your hearts. I always had a little bit of an opening to all of this, but if I wouldn't say I was completely open. And I just knew things had to change. And so I ask that people just be open, try something you haven't tried. And I think we are ahead of the curve. I think this is going to be happening, in 10 years, this is all going to be like in everywhere, in the hospitals, in doctors' offices, stuff like that. But right now, just be open to that, because I know what the model is for healthcare, and this can help with a lot of those. I'm not saying it's going to cure cancer, breath work, but honestly, a lot of stuff is stored in our bodies. So just being open to these things, it's life-changing. It can literally be life-changing with anxiety and depression and illness. And so just being open to trying new things. And I think you'll be like pleasantly surprised at what you end up seeing.
Amazing. Sally, one final question I ask every guest. Where do you see the magic in the world?
I see the magic in the world. That's just every day. Like, I just think I didn't used to see it that way, but I see the magic in the world by just looking out my window right now and seeing the leaves changing and the dog coming in the house. I'm starting to learn to see the magic in everything that happens, because the world can be a harsh place and life is hard. And so we have to create our magic every day. Otherwise, like, what are we doing?
So good. Thank you, Sally, for coming on.
You're
Where can
welcome.
people find you, connect with you, work with you? Tell us all the things.
So, SallyDavidsonCoach.com. My business is Rooted Soul, but I'm on Instagram as Sally Davidson Coach, and everything is on there. I'm doing virtual breath work. I do live stuff. I'm doing coaching. I do energy healing. I do a little bit of everything, and create what my client needs. I do inner alignment work, and so that's like one of my signature packages. But yeah, just look me up. It's all on there, and I'd love to be in touch.
Thank you so much for being part of this. It just feels so good to talk to all these practitioners who are doing such cool things, and you most certainly are one of them. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope you learned something and thought a little bit differently about your own health and well-being, and might consider using breath work, Reiki, other energy work. Maybe it even just opened up a tiny curiosity for you about how these modalities could support you. Stay tuned for Thursday's episode, where I'm going to offer you a little bit of breath so that you can try it out for yourself. I usually do that on Thursday threads anyway. so that you can start to invite this practice into your life, even just for 5 minutes this week. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for the rest of the month, where we are going to be talking about the science, the neuroscience of breath work. That's what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to talk about spirituality. We're going to talk about practical ways that you can implement this into your life. It's going to be awesome. Stay tuned. You're going to meet the coolest people. I can't wait for you to meet all of them. Thank you so much for listening. If there's something that you learned in this episode, share it with a friend. Share it with somebody else who could learn something too. If you share it on Instagram and tag me, I will always reshare your posts. As long as I see it, make sure you tag me and I will see it and I will reshare it. Thank you again so much for listening. You just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see.